increase the share and prosperity of pensioners. And, I mean, you're right in saying we're going to inherit a situation where, because of the very tight position on public finances, there's a limit to what we can do. But I think the choice at the election will be very, very clear. The choice is between a Labour Party that is committed to the basic state pension as the foundation of pension provision, or a Conservative Party that is pledged to remove the state pension. Now, it's not just increasing the basic state pension in line with prices that is our policy. We've also put forward the proposal of cutting VAT on fuel, which will be of benefit to pensioners particularly, and those that are living in poverty and face difficulties every winter with their heating bills. In addition, we have proposals to put together the best provision of public and private sector to try and provide better pension provision for people in the future. Now, I know that there's a limit to what we can do and what we can promise. But I do say to you, if you look back over Labour governments in the past, we did pretty well by pensioners, and we will do well again. And as soon as we can, we will make sure that pensioners get the deal that they want. And I will do the very best by them.
Will you do better
than just to keep it in line with prices? And I say that the reason for that, it was, of course, the Conservatives that broke the link with earnings. And that was done, and we inherit that situation now. And all the way through, what I've been anxious to avoid is making people promises and commitments that I cannot truly, guarantee that I can keep to. So because of the difficulties that we will inherit, I have to limit my pledge to that. But in addition, there are the measures on the National Health Service that will be of enormous benefit to pensioners. There are the measures on crime, and, for example, halving the amount of time it takes to get juvenile offenders to court. This will also be of assistance to pensioners. But I'm not going to make a promise to pensioners or to anyone else that I cannot keep. Okay. But I believe that our proposals will be far better for pensioners than the proposals of the Conservative Party.
Roy Allison.
I've got to try and operate within the situation that I'll inherit. And when you say you could do something more radical and add more on, I mean, all these things come in the end down to pounds, shillings and pence. And, there are a lot of calls on government and government finances, and we've got to take all those things into account. Now, I say to you, we have done well by pensioners in the past. Labour governments have. They set up SERPs, they were instrumental in the basic state pension, all these things that we have done. But I say this to you, I would love to be able to sit here and promise, everyone extra money for this and that and the next thing. We are going to inherit a situation where the national debt has doubled, where borrowing has been allowed to get out of control by the Conservatives, and we are going to have to live within the means that we will inherit. But having said that, everything we can do, we will do. I've said that to pensioners, and I mean it. But the worst thing for me, or for you, would be for me to sit here and say to you, I can guarantee you this, that, and the next thing, if I know that that simply may not be the case. Right. But the commitments that we have given, I think, are the best commitments that are on offer in this general election from any political party, and they stand in sharp contrast to the Conservative proposals on pensioners. And we've also said, I may say, that we will look, for example, at how we deal with the problems of community care. The difficulties many elderly people face when they have to sell up their own homes in order to pay for their nursing home costs. So we will do this in the best way we can. Well, you shake your head, and I understand the problem, but I am not going to make promises in this election that I cannot keep, not to you or to anyone else. I understand the frustration, but I must rest on that point. Well, right, but that's precisely why we want to proceed on the basis of consensus, not simply slapping down a series of proposals and say, there it is, take it or leave it. I mean, the problem of community care is a deep-seated problem, because people are living longer, there is a greater requirement for nursing home care, there is the interaction between the National Health Service, social services, community care. We've got to get this right. Now, in the end, I'm afraid, you've got to make up your minds as to who you trust to make these reforms. Ourselves, the Labour Party, that introduced the welfare state, or the Conservative Party that has spent 18 years undermining it. And the very problems that pensioners have today stem, in many cases, from what the Conservatives did over those 18 years. Now, I've said to you, I will do my best by Britain's pensioners, as previous Labour governments have done, but I'm not going to make promises to you that I can't keep. I do not withdraw a single iota of it. And let me explain exactly what the Conservative proposals are so that people are aware of the full danger of them. Their proposals are that they replace the state pension with a privately funded scheme. Now, they say that that will only apply to young people, but if you look at the small print of the press release that was put out when Peter Lilly announced these proposals, it says that they can, in time, bring older people into this scheme as well. In order to fund it, in part, young people, or all those in the scheme, will lose the tax relief on their pension contributions. They have never explained how they are going to build up a private fund big enough to replace the state pension in those decades' time. They've never explained that. There is a huge hole in their explanation of where this money comes from. And I say to people very seriously that the choice at this election is between a Labour Party that will build on the basic state pension as we can, and a Conservative Party that is pledged to get rid of the state pension, and your pension will not be safe with them, and people should understand that very clearly in this election.
So when they say they'll be guaranteed a pension at least equal to the current basic state pension, increased in line with inflation...
It's a private pension, they say.
It's for the young people entering the workforce, yes.
Yes, but this is a private pension. Now, they say they're going to guarantee that they'll make up any shortfall that there is, but where's this money going to come from? They've never explained it. And until they answer the questions about this, we will carry on pressing them on it. But I say to you, to people, pension provision is not safe with the Conservatives. And a lot of people remember, David, two things. One, a Conservative Party that before the last election pledged that they would not put VAT on fuel and then did it in the budget straight after the election. And the second thing that people remember is the poll tax, which they said would be of enormous benefit to the people of this country, a mere administrative change in the financing of local government, and cause devastation. Now, the party of the poll tax and VAT on fuel is not the party that can be trusted with Britain's pensions.
Okay, we're just
exactly, but you talked of people's democratic rights. There is also a democratic right to live in peace, free from fear and hassle and abuse. And many people do in this society as a result of persistent juvenile offending. And I cannot see that it is in any way a transgression of young people's rights to hasten the time for persistent young offenders that it takes to get them from being charged to get them to court. And it really, we've got to tackle this problem. And if the Labour Party stands for those that are in a vulnerable position, then I tell you, it's some of the most vulnerable in our society who fear most from crime. And I know people on council estates, elderly people whose lives are made hell by this, and we have to tackle it. It's absolutely right that you can't reduce it below 5%. That's why we've said we'll reduce it to 5%. But your second point is not correct, no. There are no provisions for the indirect taxation to be harmonised across Europe, and indeed we would resist any such provisions.
Okay, let's take...
I don't think that that would raise the money that people say, because I think it's important that people have an incentive to work hard and to do well, and because I don't think that the answer, for example, to the problems of youth unemployment is to take some money off those at the top and give a few more pounds in benefit to those at the bottom. I mean, the proposal that we've got for the windfall tax on the privatised utilities, the excess profits of the privatised utilities, that, I think, is a far better and far fairer way of doing it. And it will ensure that we do get those 250,000 young people off benefit and into work, and they'll be given a range of different options. It could be a job with a private sector employer, or it could be a proper skill or apprenticeship, not some Mickey Mouse scheme, but a proper skill or apprenticeship. And I think that is the best way to move this country forward. But, we've also, there's another point on top rate tax. If you look what's happening all around the world, top rate marginal rates of tax are coming down. It's not just in Britain, they've come down all around the world, and we've got to, we're in an internationally competitive situation. We've got to remain competitive there. I would like to see, however, Joan, if there is room for manoeuvre on tax, we've brought down high marginal rates of tax at the top, but there are many people in this country on low incomes who still face very high marginal rates of tax at the bottom, on low incomes. Now, I would like to see, if we have room for manoeuvre, a 10p starting rate of tax that would start to help those people on lower incomes.
Come back.
Yeah. Joan, all the experience was under Labour governments and Conservative governments in the past, where there were very high marginal rates of tax, that those with the best accountants didn't pay them and others did. And, you've just got to make a judgment. What is the best way forward? We've chosen the windfall tax as the best way of financing that programme. We think that's the right thing to do. And we are concerned to make sure, let me try and put it to you in this way. I think it is good in Britain if people, by hard work and effort, can become wealthy and successful. I welcome that. I like that. I don't want to level down. I want to level up. But I would say to you that the best way that we can move the situation forward in the future is to try and do something for those people, either without work or who are facing very high marginal rates of tax at the bottom end. Now, the Conservatives will say they're going to abolish all inheritance tax and capital gains tax. It will cost you £4.5 billion. Half of the benefit of that would go to the wealthiest 5,000 families in the country. Now, that's their prescription. I say if that money is available, introduce the 10p starting rate of tax. And I think that's a better way of doing it.
You say that